Oh no. I guess I'm live. I don't know. Okay, there we go. Cool, 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 cool. All right. Get this out of the way because I don't have a use for it yet. So this is what we got, guys. This is my chess piece, one of the sides of the chess piece for the Gouf Custom. I've added some 3D. I think they're 3D printed parts. I got them from USA Gundam Store. I've added some photo etch. I've done a little bit of scribing. I've done a lot of scribing, and I'm pretty pleased with where this sits right now. So what I'm going to try to do is replicate this on this side. I'm going to show you what I did. I'm going to walk you through a little bit of the process and how I got where I am. So I'm going to take this because I'm going to need that too. But before we jump into that, I'll show you some other stuff that I've done. I have scribed 2 lines. You can't really see them right now, but there's 2 lines across the top of the head. This is like that standard, like the Zaku always have that. And then I've changed the angle that the helmet sits at because it had that really weird, super wide, not very menacing looking head. So this is pretty much like the first thing that you see when Japanese modelers work on the Gouf Custom is this changes, or when they work on Zaku's as well, just so that it looks a little bit better. And there's a lot of ways to do this, but this is the easiest way for this kit because it has this little nose piece on the top of the eye. So for this, we're going to be doing a little bit of scribing. The big theme here, the big thing I'm trying to practice with this particular build is I'm trying to experiment with line weights and other little things like that, little subtle changes. So what I mean when I say line weight is usually you see lines scribed, and it's all the same width and the same thickness. With this, I'm trying to change just some of the lines that I scribe to a different thickness to add a little bit more interest to the piece. And I'll show you how I've gone about that. So we're going to start with a 800 grit sanding sponge. And basically all I'm going to do is just try to hit all the surfaces and make sure that I can use my pencil on all these surfaces. I'm not wet sanding yet. I'll save that for once everything is done. But you just want to make sure you get most of the faces. Anything that you're planning on scribing on, you should probably sand. The tricky ones are these little curved areas here, but because this is a soft sponge, not too big of a deal. Bless you. Okay. So we've hit all the surfaces with an 800. I'm going to go back just a light pass with a 1000 just to tidy it up just a tiny bit. This is probably unnecessary, but I'm going to do it anyway. Um, okay. So the first line I scribed on this was along the top. It's this little like latch thing. The idea here is that this front panel can like pop up and rotate or be removed if it's needed. So what I'm going to do is just mark that. And I'm going to show you how I did it. So I'm using MadWorks scribing tape. This is just what works best for me. If you use Dymo tape, if you use stacked masking tape, whatever works best for you, go ahead. So first order of business is just to get it along your top and bottom line, and then I like to trim the excess because if there's any fiddly bits that are sticking off, it's really easy to accidentally bump it and just knock the whole piece, either knock the tape askew or pull the tape off entirely. So I try to trim the excess when I can, if it's a lot. So I'm just going to line up along the top and the bottom. And another thing, I mean, it's kind of wasteful, but if I cut a little extra and then I trim it later, it lets me touch the tape. So that looks about the same. Well, you should probably measure. Every time I've measured, I end up with a lot of problems, so I just kind of eyeball things. But that's just me, so that looks good to me. Okay, so the first lines we're going to scribe are going to be with our 0, 1. So I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to scribe off the piece. I'm going to start here, pull off the piece, and I'm going to let the tool do most of the work. I'm not going to apply any real pressure. I'm just going to kind of get in there a couple times and start a groove. This is going to make a little bit of a pilot line for myself, and then I can start putting a little bit more pressure down. We're going to flip it over and do the other side on the top. So just like that. And then this one we're going to try and stop ourselves. So I'm going to put my thumb up against the piece so I don't scribe off the piece and create some weird jagged line somewhere else. All right, and that's fine. So now I'm going to add 2 more pieces of tape, and I'm going to do my side lines before I do my bottom line. So these are, I'm just going to try and line the corner up with the top of that first scribe. That angle is way too extreme. Let's do that again. There we go. Like I said, if you got a little bit overhang, it's fine, but try not to let it go too crazy. Same thing here. Yo, what's going on, Terry? Commissar Stanley, how you guys doing? So my chat is not working on my computer, so it's a good thing I pulled this up on my phone. Now, if only I could keep the screen from going dim. I guess I'll have to actually start the stream on my phone. RIP battery. Okay. So something like that. That should be fine. All right, now I'm going to scribe from my first lines down to the bottom. Same rules apply as far as pressure goes. Just let the tool do the work for you. Just try and guide it against that tape. All right, now for my bottom line, I'm almost positive I used a 0.3. I did. So for my bottom line, I'm just going to use. I'm going to keep all the tape where it is. This is going to tell me where to stop. This is going to let me know where I need to go, and I'm just going to trace the bottom line using a 0.3 chisel instead of the 0.1. And that's going to create a little bit of the illusion that there's like a little bit of a slant there, and it's exposing the underside of that just a tiny bit more. Now I can pull all that tape off, and there's my line. So then I'm going to take just some 1000 grit. And there we have it. So now that that's done, that actually matches up really well. The next line I scribed was down here at the bottom. Now this one is slightly offset from the top line. And this, all this does is create separation between the front panel and the back panel. Because I figure more often than not you're going to need to protect the front than the back, so the back panel shouldn't need to be replaced as frequently. And it should be pretty easy to just pop that off once everything else is off anyway, using real world logic anyway. So I'm going to just finish this line down the side here. All right. Now what I'm going to do with this one is I'm just going to put a piece of tape on both sides. And I'm going to start about a little under halfway. For my handles, I'm just using old knife blades, old X-Acto knife blades. I bought a lot of the old like X-Acto knife sets that came with 3, and I end up using the one and not using the other, so I've got a bunch laying around. There we go. All right, now we're going to take another piece of tape, lay it across. And again, we're going to use the 0.3 just to create a little bit of variety in those lines. So there we go, second line done. So let's jump into adding some of this recessed detail. So I recently made a purchase from USA Gundam Store, and they have these option parts. They look like they're 3D printed. They're on a plate of what look like resin, and you snip them off. They look exactly like resin, so I'm pretty sure that they're just 3D printed resin. Let's see if I can find the one I used. Well, this one definitely got used, so we'll snip that piece off. And all you do is you just kind of get your cutters underneath of it and give it a little cut. Put your thumb over it. And if you try to pull it, you could break it. I've broken one. But if you're careful, it'll go flying a little bit. And there you go. So we'll need that in a little bit, but not right away. I'm trying to find that other piece. Ah, there it is. This one is off of, they're called DUA. That means Design Upgrade Accessories, and this is off of part 35. So I'm gonna just cut off one of these little vents, and it broke. And that's kind of the one of the big struggles here is with them being made out of resin. You could definitely break them pretty easily. So let's try another approach. Let's get them off with a knife. In the world, struggling here. Oh, I cracked it. Man, I got real lucky with the first one. All right, new approach. I'm gonna cut. Wow, broke that one. There. I'll cut it off that way. Now let me see if I can cut this vent off without breaking that too. I can't believe how much trouble that gave me. And that should be that for the 3D printed parts. So it looks like, I don't know what's up with the way these are molded, but oh my god, I broke it again. I just can't win today. Alright, we might have to skip that. We'll come back to that. So this one was literally just glued on the front. I didn't do anything crazy with this. I trimmed down the pegs. I just think that one has too many pegs or something. I don't know. It's too rigid. And if you disrupt it at all, yeah, I'm gonna try sanding one or sawing one off. So you want to sand that flat, sand the bottom of it. And all I did was just glued it onto the front here and lined it up with the front of the piece. So just like that. And for that, we're just going to use some regular super glue. I got this little plate here that I just put paint and crap on. And some tweezers, if I can find them. And there we go. So later I'll sand that down just a little bit so it matches a little bit better. What's going on? Weird Beard, how you doing? I did not see you just a second ago. Okay. So the next line I think I'm going to scribe is going to be up here at the top. This is just kind of to complete that that latch that I was talking about to make this look more like a hinge. So this is going to wrap all the way around. So I'm not going to fuss too much about making it wrap yet. I just want to make sure I can get the line scribed. So the first line is going to be on this little corner piece, and it's going to line up with the top of the piece. Trim the excess. And then number 2. All right. So again, we're just, oh, that's a knife. That's the one danger of using the same handles for everything. So I'm going to scribe right about here. And then on the top, we're going to do the same thing. Now this, yeah, that's a 3 as well. Oh. All right. Check our line. Got a little bit of a jump right there, but that's okay. So now we have a line that we can push through for the front. Now this line it literally just goes across the top. There's no bumps in it or anything crazy like that. It just goes across the top, and it's got a notch on the inside. This tape stuck to my cutters. And I'm gonna have to cut another piece here in a second, but we'll cross that bridge in just a minute. Well, maybe not. Go. So now we can finish that line out same way it started. All right. Now we just need a notch on the top, and it's a bottom notch, of course. And this notch is a 0.5. So we're just going to grab this and put that little notch in there. Make sure it's nice and squared up. Whew. All right, so the next line I'm going to do is going to be around this front piece here. Again, the idea behind this is that I figure this is probably going to get beat up a lot being in the front of the chest, whether it be protecting the pilot or just taking general fire. So being able to swap out this piece easily should be, it seems like a no-brainer. Then we've got a panel here in the middle for general maintenance underneath the chest, and that leaves a nice side panel, the vent, the heat sink, all that stuff. And then everything else is just kind of miscellaneous detail. So for the chest, man, I really did this the dumbest way. That's okay. For the chest, and Tim actually inspired this. I was just going to let it be. So just make sure that's good and in there. Hey, what's going on with Tazaku? We are doing well. I hope you're doing well. Just trying to stay hunkered down, you know. Okay, so now we need to scribe this into the other side. And for that, I'm just gonna kind of follow the same line. I want everything to line up. And the step in this line is pretty small, so we're not gonna go too far. There we go. I'm knocking this out a lot quicker than I expected to. I thought this was going to take a little longer. And then we're just going to lay this across these two lines and connect, because I can put my thumb on this and just hold it down. And that will scribe right into that other line. And if you don't put too much pressure, you'll feel it fall in line. So there we go. Okay. So with this line done, now we can do the scary line. So, yeah, that looks good. So this main line here on the chest, it comes down, but there's a step in the line that goes all the way out. And I kind of got this idea. I've been watching a lot of like tank modeling videos, and a lot of those guys like to go into the history of the tanks as well. Well, I kind of associate the bulk, not so much Xeon itself, but the bulk of this particular suit, with the proportions and stuff, with like German tanks. And German tanks had a lot of interlocking plates across them. So I thought, let's make an interlocking plate. It looks great here. Whether or not it's going to look great here is another story. So let me take a bite of noodles and get some drink, and we'll tackle this one. It's lunchtime. All right. So, let's sketch this one in. We haven't sketched any in yet, but I'm going to show you how I came up with it. So the first thing I did was just kind of trace just a general line from top to bottom where I wanted my line to run. So just like that. And then we've got two lines that run off here. And then right along that edge is just a small little cut. And I did cut this at a 0.3 just so that you had a little bit more of that variety. So to put this one on, it's pretty easy until you get to the side cut. Big old piece of tape right down the middle of the chest. Trim that excess. Next, I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually just going to block in like most of the tape work. So I'm going to stick that in there. And then we can start scribing. So again, all you need to do is scribe into this line. Flip it over, scribe into the other line. I'm going to go ahead and handle this notch while the tape is still behaving. And then we're gonna try and wrap some tape around this corner. If you only feel comfortable going one way, just go one way and then flip it over and do the other way. And then I'm going to switch over to the 3, and I'm going to cut in this line here. And then I'm going to cut one more piece of tape, and I'm going to wrap it over everything else. Someone is really out there going on their motorcycle. You guys can hear me, right? There we go. And then same as the last one, just cut those lines in. And there we have it. Cool. Thank you, Terry. I know I'm not the most entertaining person to watch, but I would like to make sure that the people that are watching me can hear me. So there we've got it. Come on. There we go. I wish my camera would just lock focus on like my hands. There we go. And of course, as soon as I move the piece into focus, the camera is like, nope. Okay, so that was the hard one. I'm happy that it's done. So we've got the underside scribe, and we got to drop this sink in, and then we can throw a couple more little extra details on here. What's going on, Backstepped? Mr. Andy, how are you? I'm very pleased with this. All right, I'm gonna pull this. I'm gonna try and pull this sink out of here one more time, and I'm gonna use this little saw. And if I don't get it out this time, I'm just gonna, I don't know, tear my hair out. What's left? I swear, the first one of these I cut, I had no problem. I chopped it off and was ready to go. Got it. All right, there we go. So same rule. Oh, there's 3 layers. That definitely explains why. Okay. Let's trim all these little pegs off of here. Ugh, the worst. Well, hopefully you're at least staying away from people, sir. I would hate. So I'm not sure what the purpose of the over something that was done to make putting the tanks together easier or like make it work better. So typically, like in I think in American made tanks, where this would be a panel and this would be a panel, they would just weld it in the middle. And in German tanks, not all of them, but a lot of them, they would create these interlocking panels like this, and it would, I guess it would help lock things in place. But they would put the two panels together, and then they would just kind of weld along that, and it was, I don't know. I don't know why they did it, but it looks really neat, so I thought I'd try it. So there's where we're at right now. Okay, so before we scribe this underside line, we need to stick this this vent on here. So like right there. We're going to do it the same way we did the other piece. We are going to get a little bit of super glue. We're going to dip our piece. And then we got a little bit sticking out that we don't want. I need like a paper towel or something. This is too quick work. It's like old brush it is. All right. So once that dries, we can get to work on that. So now we've got a couple more lines and a couple more details to cut in. So let's get started on this vent, because this is going to be a bit of a pain as well. Okay. So what I did with this is I held this here and I traced the outline. Put that over there. And I took my tape and I made a little square. You can do this with masking tape too. Actually, I think I might, just to save a little bit of the tape that I've got. So I'm just going to lay this tape across the top and the bottom. I'm going to do 2 layers. If you're confident enough, you can do 1. And this isn't for the scribing yet. That'll work. There's 100 ways to do this, but I'm going to do it this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trace this whole thing with my pencil just to make a really nice rectangle. And I'm going to pull it all off. And then we're going to get out the scribing tape. All right. So now I'm just going to take this and I'm going to scribe the rectangle in. And the goal at the end here is to scribe all the way through and just cut the piece out. Once you get some of your preliminary lines down, you can start removing the tape if you want. Ooh. Be careful not to let that happen. I should probably do this from the other side. And that's the importance of going slow. So there you go. You got a little square cut out. So now I'm just going to keep plugging away at it until I start going through the plastic. I like this more than using the drill technique just because it gives me a little bit more of an exact cut. And I don't have to try and fiddle with like sanding it or using a file or anything like that. It's just cut through. you doing in my room? Goodbye. Oh, I think we're finally cutting through. Yep. Once you start breaking through, you can switch over to a knife and just kind of like poke at it a little bit. This is also where you start to run into trouble on this particular piece. Just because this section is so small. Come in here and just smooth this out a little bit to help me work. I just jumped that line again. So I've cut through on all fronts. Now we're just going to poke in here with the knife and try and get this panel out. There we go. Popped it right up. So now I'm just going to go in here and tidy up these edges with my knife. Plug that right in here. take our plastic magic, and I just like to touch around the edges. And you just push that down and make sure it stays. You can use these little handy pliers if you got them. Just for a few seconds to let that kind of lock into place. Ugh. So is everything looking okay so far, guys? Am I missing anything? Should I break things down more? While we let that sit for a minute, I can go over some more of the little stuff I've done. This I feel is just a giant slab of metal meant to, you know, rather than being something that is meant to move, it's just kind of a big hunk of something that's meant to protect all this. So I just stuck some these on here. I imagine these like cover, they're little latches that cover bolts. And then I did like a little latch around the hinge for the cockpit. I figure if there's something that needs to be repaired on that, easy to do. Okay, so now that this is good, we're just going to go ahead and put a drop of super glue directly in there. We don't have to measure anything because it's inset. So just drop of glue. And there we go. Okay, so we've got a line on the bottom of this. Back to the scribing. I wish I knew when my internet was acting up today. Another little notch. And then we need to just connect that. And then I'll tidy up wherever that got messed up later. All right, so the last big line, I think. Yeah, I think we've only got one more line. Is this bottom one. And that's just a straight line. No notches or anything. This just runs along that bottom edge. Kind of missed a little bit. That's okay. There, oh, here we go. Oh, we didn't. Look, I almost messed that up. Okay. So there we have it. I have... Oh, wait, there's a little bit more left to do. I forgot about that. So for this last little bit, all I did was just kind of trace around this real lightly to create a little bit of a panel around the vent here. There's another thing I picked up from Tim, is it really helps kind of emphasize anything that's sticking out if you scribe around it. And then just to kind of help further emphasize that, I would like to make it look like the vent itself is latched in. So I just throw a little 5.5 millimeter on the top, and it's just a long latch. There we go. So I lied about not needing any more 3D printed parts. I forgot there's one more little one. This is the littlest of little. This is just one of these little rivet details. That is MUA or DUA part number 42. And all I did was find a nice spot in the middle and stuck that right there. Drill that through. And then I just Duck that in there. Using your tweezers will probably help you. Just widen this just a smidge. There we go. Now I can push that in there. I leave it sitting out just a tiny bit. And then I went on the back and I just put some super glue over the top to kind of lock it in place. And there we have it. So the last actual step is the photo etch, which is arguably the easiest part. So I got these again from USA Gundam Store. These are part 87. They're these little handles. You'll get a whole bunch of them, and it seems like the lower you get, the more you actually get as far as, I guess, value. But up at the top, you need to be a little bit more picky and choosy. And these are just kind of like, I figured if this was going to be like transported somewhere, it would need to either be like bolted down, or if they're transporting it by helicopter, they can latch on here and under the arms. There's probably some more inside the chest just to like hold it, and then when it needs to drop it. So I'm going to grab two of these guys. Just going to use my knife. Two of these guys. There's some sort of magnetism going on with my knife. Kind of weird. Alright, so the first thing I need to do is I need to take these handles and I need to bend them. So I'm going to pick these up with my tweezers, if I can get in there. I'm going to grab onto the flat piece and I'm going to hold it as flat as I can. And I'm just going to very gently push that up. And that creates the handle. Okay. Let me get our little handy dandy super glue tray thing. Now the first one I'm going to put is going to be over this little panel line that we scribed, and that's just going to kind of work to create the idea that there is a latch, or that this hook is also being used to cover a latch. And then the other one is going to go on the back. So just right there. Now these are a little harder to grab onto because they're so tiny, but if we can get that. We're going to line that up with the other side and just stick that down. And then one on the other side. And there we go. We have completed the other side. So now I can stick this on here. Stick this on this side. We can take a look and see how we did. I am pretty content with that. Get the super glue out of the way. There we go. So I think the chest looks good. I think we can call that done. There's a little bit of cleanup that needs to be done here and there, but nothing too major. So what do you guys think we should work on next time? Should we move on to the arms? Should we jump into the legs? The head is pretty much done. There's not really much I want to do with the head. I wanted to make that one change. There's a couple like little lines I'm going to scribe just to kind of make this little nose thing work, I guess. But that's not really enough to take on a whole episode. What do you guys think? Arms or legs? The arms, I have a couple of ideas what I want to do with, including a little bit of a cutaway. I need to make this a thing somehow. The legs are going to be like another kind of beast too. So I'm probably just going to do the skirts independently and let them be what they are. But all in all, I'm pretty pleased with where we're at so far. I think the chest looks really good. I'm very happy with the way it's come out. Hopefully you guys dig it too. I forgot to mention this, I did some digging around and I found some Xeon hands for MG kits. So that helps with those. These look a lot better. I don't have the open hands. I don't know where they went. I believe they might actually be with Tim. I think when I did my Efreet build, I used the open hands for some reason for that. So I've got closed fists, and then I've got the trigger fingers, and I cut the one trigger finger off the right hand and kind of modified it a little bit to make it less of a trigger finger and more of like a holding hand, and I'm going to try and like fit the sword into there some way so that it looks pretty good. And then the other trigger hand will be fine to use for the Gatling shield. I think that'll be all right. Ugh. So that was fun. Nothing else, guys? Any suggestions on what we want to do next? After we've seen these horrendous shoulders up. Okay, well, I guess I'm just gonna wrap this up here. We've started seaming up the shoulder. Um, there's not really enough time to do anything else. I got done what I wanted to get done. I can't complain about that. So next week we will get back into this on Monday. I'm gonna spend the weekend trying to come up with some new ideas, and maybe we'll just jump into the arms. I think I'm gonna save the legs and the feet for last. I think they will be pretty straightforward, hopefully. But thank you guys for watching and hanging out. I need to find my other camera and my other arm so we can make this look a little bit better. But I'm pretty happy with the new layout. Hopefully you guys think it looks good. We're back in the hobby room. I've cleaned everything up. That's what I spent all yesterday doing. So YouTube videos will look a little nicer, hopefully, and we can get back into the swing of things. So I'm going to wrap this up here. Thank you guys for hanging out. Be sure to go check out Tim's stream over at Child of Mecca. I'm sure he's going to be slightly more